do think that life coaching has got a bit of a bad rap. But what I do take issue with is this idea that in order to engage in personal development, you have to pay for the privilege. You don't need to go to a huge stadium full of people shouting and bawling. You don't need the feel-good factor. It's a very personal pursuit, in my view. I think there's a clue in the term personal development. First of all, as I've already said, it's something that you can take on for yourself if you are interested in your own personal development. There might be a logical progression into becoming a coach. That's true. But I also think that there are a lot of people out there who, throughout their lives, have read widely and have had an active interest in their own personal development, and they haven't felt the need to go and see another coach. You just take a look around the nearest bookstore, those that are still open, and you'll find a section which is full of books, very useful books that people have been purchasing and reading in the privacy of their own surroundings. I remember many years ago having guilt about personal development, and I heard a book about procrastination. It was called Defeat Procrastination Now. And I used to read it in secret and keep it in a secret place so nobody could see me reading it. And here's the kicker. I never did finish the book. But I have read widely of other things as well. He said, skating quickly back to prove his credentials. I've followed Tony Robbins' career with great interest since the 80s. And, if you consider what he's done with his life and what he's done for the lives of others, it's phenomenal, absolutely incredible. And he has moved with the times. He's managed to learn how to scale. He may have started out by doing face-to-face and workshops, radio interviews and selling cassettes out in the back of his car. But now, look at him now. He's a multi-million-dollar global conglomerate. Life coaching has been very good to him. But Tony Robbins is not the sum total of all life coaching. There are millions, if not billions, of other people out there who are quietly going about their lives, developing themselves, growing, accumulating wisdom, and being the best version of themselves that they can be. There's room in the market for everybody, in my view. So if you're a personal development junkie like myself and you enjoy reading about personal development, I would encourage you to consider how the reading that you've done and how the work you've done on yourself has translated into your life. And that, in a nutshell, really is what personal development coaching is. I'm a big advocate of the idea of you coach thyself first. I think it's one of the oldest philosophical tenets, isn't it? Know thyself. So by knowing yourself, you can then help other people. You can reflect. You can add value in so many different ways. You are in this for life. It's a journey. You are a seeker. I also talk about something called the GROW approach. If you get into the module where I start talking about goals and goal setting, you will find that I'm not a big fan of goals. Not smart goals, anyway. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't have goals, and I hope I'm not confusing you by saying this, that if you have a goal, that's a wonderful thing to have. But the purpose of the goal is to kickstart and start a journey of personal growth. Because if you start the goal by the time you get to what you want, in theory, you should no longer be the same person who set out on the journey. So have a goal by all means, but make it the first step in an interesting journey, a voyage of discovery, not the actual projected end result, because it ain't going to happen like that. State to yourself what you want in a general term. You can be specific if you like. That's the G in the GROW process. But the second letter in the GROW process is R, and the R stands for reality. In order to set that goal, in order to get yourself kick-started, you have to have a dose of reality, and you have to be able to work out where it is you are now. So wherever you are now, that is your reality. Get in touch with that. And let's face it, the goal that you're setting may be because you desire to get away from the reality you're in now. That's good. It's good that you know what that reality looks like. And it's good that you know what you're trying to move away from. The next part of the GROW acronym is options. When you set yourself the goal and you've checked your reality, part of that process is for you to know what options are available to you. Do you have the option of buying yourself out of the problem? Do you have the option of working yourself out of the problem? Do you have the option of not facing the problem at all and simply hiding under a rock? These are all options. Objectively speaking, they are all equally valuable to you. So weigh the options. And the final letter in the GROW acronym, of course, is W, and that stands for will, in terms of how much will do you have to do this. One of the problems I have with goal setting is that if you're coaching somebody and they are in a vulnerable state of mind because they've had to take a giant leap of faith and courage in order to take on the guidance that you're providing, the easiest thing in the world is to send them away with a feel-good, warm, fuzzy kind of sense of themselves, so they feel like they're achieving something. But unfortunately, they won't be achieving anything because the circumstances that led them to you are still there, wired in. So then you hazard sending somebody away to fulfill a goal which they have no chance of fulfilling. In short, you can set them up to fail. And because they feel like they're getting somewhere, they feel like they're getting value from the process. So be very careful about how you set goals, the kinds of goals you set, and be prepared to issue disclaimers to people when you put a goal in front of them. Because the second big part of the whole process is accountability. If the client isn't prepared to be accountable, then they're wasting their time and yours. So the final part of the GROW process, having the goal, knowing your reality, checking your options, and finally checking in on yourself and making sure that you have the will to do this thing. That is a way to encourage people to be based in some sense of fact, rather than just sallying forth looking for some pie in the sky wish fulfillment. Really, this is a relationship building exercise as much as anything. So what else? We've looked at personal development coaching. I've given you some of my impressions about what personal development and personal development coaching is or is not. I've also talked a little bit about my dislike of goal setting, and I've shared some of the information about the GROW technique with you. You'll also find that I've put in some information about ethics, and I've linked ethics to cash. I believe that ethics and money are very closely linked, because money is a universal form of currency which can be trusted by everybody. We're not using sheep and goats. We're not having to reinvent the wheel when we use money as a form of exchange. That raises the question about how much you charge. If I charge $1,000, can I, hand on heart, claim to provide $1,000 worth of value? Does it follow that you will want to pay $1,000? So what you have really is you have a balance between the value that you are providing for the service and the amount of money that a person is prepared to pay for the service. Now, not everybody is prepared to pay the same amount. Close to 50% of people, 45% of people will pay according to the lowest price they can. Another 40% of people will pay according to a higher value, a higher tier. And there's a small minority of people who will pay what seems to be ridiculous money for the same thing. And the reason for that is because the people who are consuming material are consuming it on the basis of the value they get from it. So if I share advice about setting up as a coach to somebody who has the resources and the means to follow the advice and to finance it, to them, paying $1,000 for the information is small potatoes, because they know they will get the money back. Whereas if you are somebody who is simply curious and you don't know whether you want to engage in coaching, whether you want to take that pivot or go into that stage of your life, well, for you, paying $1,000 is going to be quite a risk. So what I'm saying is that charging money and charging the right amount of money for the value you promote and the value you provide is an ethical duty. There is an argument that if you charge more for the service or the product, then people will get the result because they've invested more heavily. And all of these arguments hold water. But at the end of the day, the ethical thing to do is to charge what you think the product or the service is worth. And by that, I mean that you shouldn't be undercharging for the work that you do, because your ethical duty as well is to put food on your table and to keep your lights burning. So now we've got an ethical duty to ourselves, which you have to fulfill, and make sure that the charge out rate is going to enable you to keep doing the good work that you want to do. So ethics and cash are intimately linked, in my view. So going forward in this module, we're looking at ethics. We're looking at the financial implications of setting up as a coach. I'm looking forward to hearing from real people such as yourself. Feel free to click on the link, have a look, and I look forward to contacting you and communicating with you again in the future. And remember, whatever it is you dare to do or dream, begin it now.